Hello, everyone. I'm Robert Novak, and thank you for joining us here again for a Social Chrysalis Roundtable. And as you know, Social Chrysalis is a learning and discovery platform and all about conscious evolution, right? Not by chance, but by choice. And that's what we all wish to do, right? So anyways, tonight we got, one of our, teachers, and we're very grateful to have her. So I'm just gonna fill you in a little bit on Dr. Cynthia Hutchison, and then she'll take it from there and we'll go through some things. So Dr. Cynthia Hutchison was served as Healing Touch Program's Educational Program Director from 2005 through 2018. She holds doctoral and master's degrees in nursing and is a clinical specialist in mental health nursing. Cynthia has traveled internationally and extensively teaching and studying and has authored many articles and chapters on energy therapy. She loves teaching and sharing amazing and inspiring discoveries in the field of holistic healing, sacred geometry, spirituality, and religion. Cynthia has developed a course and DVD download on body prayer as a personal spiritual practice, which she has brought to many conferences and audiences since 2011. She authored a CD series for Sounds True on healing touch meditations. A longtime avid student of esoteric Christianity, anthropophagy, sacred geometry, and energy therapy. Cynthia has a deep interest in world religions and how they relate to the personal wisdom of truth, beauty, and goodness. A resident of Boulder, Colorado, Cynthia has a private practice in spiritually based energy therapy, including trauma release, and works with clients in person and long distance. Two of her favorite self-care practices are earthing, which is an amazing one, barefoot as much as possible on the earth, and sun gazing. So Cynthia, welcome.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks for hosting me and helping me to prepare for the Zoom presentation. And a big thank you to Stephen, who has helped me to create the course on sacred geometry and energy therapy for this platform. It's been a real joy to work with him and to get acquainted with some of you. And I hope you enjoy the 1 hour pre-recorded presentation on an introduction to sacred geometry and energy therapy, after which Robert will open up the floor for us to have questions and answers and just see what comes of what was shared. We're ready.
Absolutely. So wonderful. So yes, everyone, get your questions ready or comments, and when it's all over, we'll go live here with Cynthia again, and we will then open up the floor. Hopefully we'll bring you on so we can see your face through video as you make comments and so forth. So very much looking forward to it. So let's get started with the presentation.
Hello, welcome to this introductory course on sacred geometry and energy therapy. I'm so happy you could be here today. I hope to humbly and effectively deliver some beautiful gems about sacred geometry and how it can be applied to energy therapy in this short amount of time together. But at the end of the presentation, I'll tell you more about my full course, which is either in person or online. I'd like to tell you how this course evolved. In the year 2000, I became more conscious of sacred geometry, and I started studying it and praying with it and bringing it into my healing touch practice. And it has evolved over this period of time. And then I turned it into a course a couple of years ago. I love this topic so much. This is a huge topic. It's vast, it's immeasurable, it's immense, it's macrocosmic, truly. It applies to all of the arts, all of the sciences, including the healing arts. I teach from a universal spiritual perspective in order to have wide appeal to whatever audiences want to learn from me. My personal spiritual path is in Christianity, so I know a lot about the sacred geometry in the Christian path. So I'm happy to share more on that topic with those of you that might be interested in that. And I come with a great deal of humility, because the more I learn about this topic, the less I feel I know, quite honestly, because it is so vast. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the content of the presentation. And I have a PowerPoint for you. But let's start with a brief meditation to just help us be centered and receptive to what we're going to be learning. So I invite you to receive a deep and cleansing breath. Feel the life force within you. Let your heart be filled with gratitude. And let us offer this learning and the love in our hearts for the healing of the world and for those people or causes specifically that we hold near and dear to us. And let us align the three aspects of our soul, thinking, feeling, and willing, with truth, beauty, and goodness. That my thinking be aligned with truth and desire to know truth. That my heart and feeling be aligned with beauty and compassion. And that my will forces, my ability to take action in the world, are aligned with goodness. So it is. In this introduction, I would like to introduce you to perennial wisdom, which is a theoretical framework that I work from, as well as the concept of as above, so below. I would say that my adventure in learning about sacred geometry has brought me so much joy and happiness, a sense of adventure, often a sense of speechless wonder, awe, reverence, humility, amazement, gratitude, and always a desire to learn more. We're going to start with a definition of terms and some basic theory, so that when we move to the specific teaching with the shape of the circle and the flower of life, one of the 12 interventions, then you'll have a good basis for understanding it. Let's define sacred geometry. It is an ancient science, very mathematical in nature, that explains the energy patterns which create and unify all things, and reveals the precise way that the energy of creation organizes itself. So really, it's a study of life. Sacred geometry ascribes symbolic and sacred meanings to certain geometric shapes and certain geometric proportions. The sacred geometric blueprint that underlies the structure of everything reveals itself through patterns, frequencies, ratios, and forms, which are expressed with synchronicity between nature, science, music, math, art, and the physical world. Therefore, on every scale, every natural pattern of growth or movement conforms inevitably to one or more geometric shapes. Sacred geometry is associated with the belief that the creator being, who I call God, is the geometer of the world. Multiple meanings can be attributed to the various shapes, and some shapes can share meanings with other shapes based on your individuality, your culture and experience, your faith, and other ways of knowing. Therefore, you must be empowered to follow your guidance and inner knowing. Sacred geometric forms are symbolic. They go beyond the rational conscious mind and the left brain into the realm of the unconscious, where the soul, the spirit, and cosmic memory resides. For example, let's take a look at some of these symbols on this page. I think most of us would associate the heart in a positive way, but maybe not everybody. Certainly the flag of the Nazi regime would be negative for most people, but not everybody. The McDonald's symbol used to be positive for me years and years and years ago, and now not so much. The peace sign is usually a positive sign. The claddagh on the lower left, if you don't know what it means, it just might be very neutral to you, or you might make up your own interpretation, which would then either be positive or negative to you. And then the do not enter symbol, again, could be positive, negative, or neutral. So it all depends on our interpretations. The intellect or left brain alone is not capable of wisdom, understanding, beauty, and sacred geometry. Truly understanding and experiencing the healing power of sacred geometry is a sacred function of the human soul that must be fostered through prayer, intention, and devotion. So this is not just an intellectual kind of learning. You have to take time. You have to pray, meditate, study, and be quiet and gaze upon these forms and feel them energetically. Sacred geometry shapes have deep metaphysical meaning. Besides being beautiful, they have mathematical properties and millennia of history from all cultures. These symbols have been used for art and decoration in religious, spiritual, and healing contexts. But to say everything very simply, let's just say everything is energy, and all things earthly are absolutely and entirely ordered by geometric patterns. Where there is matter, there is geometry. My approach in teaching is to combine the mystical symbolism of sacred geometry with perennial wisdom. And then I incorporate prayerful healing affirmations with all of these sacred geometric interventions that I apply, which all relate to the quality of numbers and to various shapes. And depending on the client who I'm working with, these prayerful affirmations are either done out loud or silently. Let's learn a little bit about perennial wisdom. Perennial wisdom speaks to the three transcendental aspects of love that exist within each human soul. Those are truth, beauty, and goodness. Truth, beauty, and goodness are the innate, ultimate desires of human beings, the longing of our souls as being eternal beings of divine origin. Truth, beauty, and goodness transcend matter, time, and space and are the eternal attributes of the divine. The philosophy of perennial wisdom aligns truth, beauty, and goodness with the three human soul capacities of thinking, feeling, and willing. When we are in right relationship with our loving creator, within ourselves and with those around us. Our thinking aligns with truth, our feeling aligns with beauty, and our willing aligns with goodness. In addition, the three branches of human knowing, which we know as science, art, and religion, ideally align with truth, beauty, and goodness when they are in divine order. The ideas of what are true, good, and beautiful are found to be similar across time and cultures, thus binding humanity in mutual aspirations for our growth, development, and community harmony. Sacred geometric forms apply to all cultures, all religions, and moral personal ideologies, which gives us the possibility of a symbolic language that unites us. I find this very comforting. Let's spend a few minutes looking at benefits, history, the concepts of macrocosm and microcosm, and looking at sacred geometric forms in nature and man-made. For myself, I have noticed that since I've worked with sacred geometry, it really helps my monkey mind to stay focused on my intention of what I'm doing in a healing session. And again, a reminder that your experience with sacred geometry will be unique based on your relationship and how you relate to the various symbols and forms. But it is my experience over the last 21 years that practitioners and clients benefit from the conscious application of sacred geometry. Another benefit is that by gazing upon sacred geometry, it really helps the right and left brains to integrate. So this helps with our thinking, and it also helps us to stay heart-centered. It also can cultivate our intuition and inspire the sense of beauty within us. And sacred geometry, because it is truth, it teaches us truth in an intuitive and soulful way, as well as in an intellectual way. Beauty is truth and goodness. So think about it. Do you love to gaze at beautiful art or nature? How does it make you feel? And I trust that you've all had the experience of perceiving beauty as healing. Earthly life is amazingly geometric and beautiful. And we experience sacred geometry through all of our senses, most obviously through sight. Do you take time to notice and be in holy awe at the beauty that is around you when you are in nature? When you go for a walk or stargaze, do you go barefoot? Do you drink in the sights and the sounds and the smells? Or do you take your phone or listen to electronic music? Not that that's bad, but God speaks to us through silence. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46. So being in awe and wonder and gratitude and reverence when we are in nature raises our vibrational frequency and thus supports a healing response within us. Let's look at a few highlights from history. There's so much to share, but this study of sacred geometry from a mathematical and mystical perspective is ancient. It goes back over 2,000 years ago to the ancient cultures, and it really became a study of interest among the Greek philosophers in Athens, Plato and Aristotle and Pythagoras. The golden mean is the basis of geometry. I'm sure you've heard about it. You probably studied it briefly in high school geometry. It's been discovered and rediscovered through history. Therefore, it has several names, but it is considered the key to understanding the physics of the cosmos. And it was definitely used in the beautiful architecture of the pyramids and the Parthenon and other sacred architecture and temples and structures. So the other names for the golden mean are divine proportion, golden ratio, sacred cut, the golden spiral, and the phi proportion, as you know, 1 to 1.618 to infinity. And the golden mean is applied in the fields of math, geometry, art, architecture, physics, genealogy, anatomy, physiology, botany, etc., etc., etc. The golden proportions are everywhere in our human anatomy and in all of creation. And as Plato said, geometry is the clearest model by which to describe the metaphysical realm. So if you're interested in understanding esoteric science and spirituality, sacred geometry will really help you. It is the key to the physics of the cosmos. And a friend and colleague of mine, James Oshman, who many of you know, as a speaker and leader in the field of energy medicine, and who wrote about it in the scientific basis of energy medicine. He agrees with Plato and the ancient mystics on the value and necessity of sacred geometry for understanding and living our lives. Sacred geometry can be found in sacred and fine art from all cultures and religions. And when we gaze upon the divine proportion in fine art, it actually elicits a soul response of experiencing beauty. And even if you're not thinking about sacred geometry or the golden mean, when you're gazing upon something beautiful with sacred geometry, you're still going to receive benefits at a certain level of your soul because it's very healing. Now I'd like to introduce you to the concept of as above, so below. And perhaps the first teacher to speak about this was Hermes Trismegistus. He was a contemporary of Moses, and he was the first great Egyptian philosopher, and he founded some ancient mystery schools. He wrote the Emerald Tablet, and this book was purported to hold the secrets of the universe and became a pillar in Western alchemy, and it's still highly revered and studied. So this maxim is associated with sacred geometry, Hermeticism, the Tarot, the Jewish Kabbalah, Christian mysticism, and Rosicrucianism. Its three major principles are earth and heaven correspond to each other. The macrocosm is reflected in the microcosm and vice versa. The invisible spiritual world is reflected on the earthly plane, both at the visible plane and the microcosmic planes. And thus they are connected and discernible through sacred geometry. I know many of you are familiar with the Lord's Prayer from Christianity and the Gospel of St. Matthew. And there's that very important line, on earth as it is in heaven. And this is also the concept of as above, so below. Sacred geometry is everywhere, the macrocosm, the microcosm, and everywhere in between. And I have this amazing book that I bought called Heaven and Earth, where it shows macroscopic and microscopic images, many of which are filled with sacred geometry. So that's an image of the sun, which is macrocosmic, and a spore, which is microcosmic. What does macrocosm mean? It is the whole of a complex structure, especially the world or the universe. So think of it as the universe. And that's in contrast to a smaller representative part of it, which is called the microcosm. So for example, these are nebula, in outer space, and it's called the Eye of God, and you can see why. And there's also the circle above and the circle below, and where they intersect is called the Vesica Pisces. It's the place of union. It's the place of blending. It's the portal between the two worlds. And the microcosmic representation is the human eye. So when we deeply look into another person's eye, we feel as if we're looking into their soul or spirit. Here's some more images of macrocosm and microcosm. So a spiral galaxy is macrocosmic compared to a hurricane formation on Earth. But the hurricane formation on Earth is actually kind of microcosmic in comparison to the spiral galaxy, but it's macrocosmic to us in terms of our human vision. On the right, we see a nebula of a DNA spiral, and on the right lower photo, we see microphotography of an actual DNA strand. It's pretty amazing that we can actually see what it looks like. In my studies, I would say that the spiral along with the circle are probably the two most important sacred geometric forms, but I love them all so much, and you will too. As above, so below, macrocosmic and visible world images of the spiral and the golden mean. And more images of the spiral. And how many of you know that this is inside your body? It's actually part of your sense of hearing, the cochlear inside your ear. There it is, the beautiful golden spiral. I teach you how to work with the mother DNA double helix spiral in the sacred geometry sequence, and that's part of the full course. Let's look at macrocosm and microcosm a little bit more. I was so excited to find this image on the left. This is a spliced DNA strand, which actually has the flower of life or seed of life image. That really blew my mind when I saw that, because I wasn't aware of that. And then there is the seed of life image derived from the circle in the plant kingdom on the right. But just briefly, I do focus on the visible sacred geometry, but let's just touch on the question of what about the rest of our senses? Because it's easy to see sacred geometry, but sacred geometry is there through all of our senses, through hearing, touch, taste, and smell. So when you're listening to a favorite symphony, you're actually hearing sacred geometry. When you're smelling a rose, you're actually smelling sacred geometry. And for example, here's the flower of life in the DNA, but here's the flower of life as a sound frequency that's been photographed. It's amazing. Let's take a few minutes to just gaze upon some images of sacred geometry in the different kingdoms of nature. And I'm going to go through these quickly because of time, but I hope that it will help increase your sense of awe and wonder and reverence and humility and gratitude and mystery. Mineral kingdom. The etheric kingdom of water, snowflakes. The mineral kingdom, seashells. Plant kingdom. Animal kingdom. Don't you love these guys? If you go to the internet and search sacred geometry, you could spend the rest of your life finding images. It's quite amazing. Honeycomb, hexagon, sacred geometry in the human being. Look at the crown of our heads, where the crown chakra is, has the golden mean spiral. And for some people who have curly hair, their hair even grows in spiral formation. The human heart is a spiral organ, and the blood flows out of our aorta in a spiral flowing movement. Hurricanes, tornadoes, and even our solar system, the planets as they go around the sun are moving in spiral gestures. Briefly, now let's just look at some art and architecture, because this is human beings applying sacred geometry. So human beings learned early on that there were very practical reasons to learn sacred geometry, because it helped them to build stable supports for physical life and survival. But they also built architecture and structures for spiritual reasons, to feed their souls with beauty. And so they would feel energetically supported with high vibrations for their prayers and their worship. So here's some samples of various temples from different cultures and religions. I know I'm going through these fast, but you can always come back and access this slideshow to gaze upon them longer. It's very evident in art, especially coming into the Renaissance period. This is actually one of my favorite topics, and I have hundreds of photos of art. And you can find lots of information on that. Let's move along and start looking at some specific symbolism in some basic geometry, particularly the circle. But first, let's look at vertical, horizontal, and curved lines. Just think about it. All shapes are variations of straight and curved lines. And this is a symbol of the earth. And we'll look at the symbolism in just a minute. Why would the earth have that as an astrological symbol? So think about your spiritual practice. I'm sure that many of you apply this vertical column of light as you meditate or do practitioner preparation. And when we visualize ourselves in a column of light, we're actually grounding ourselves. We're anchoring ourselves to both heaven and earth, to the above and to the below. And then when we gaze upon a beautiful sunrise or sunset at the horizon, it is a way for us to connect with the horizontal, with the earth, with our communities, and with Mother Nature. So the vertical is a way to connect to the heavens, the cosmos, and earth in this vertical way, as well as the concept of time. And the horizontal connects us more to the earth and to the world of humanity and community and to space. When you intersect them, we create a cross. And thus, the physical world really is an intersection of matter and spirit. And the circle or sphere represents oneness. So here we are on Earth School. We feel like we're bound by time, space, and matter, but we know that some people have been able to surpass those limitations. The religious symbology of the cross. This is the most important symbol in Christianity because it represents the intersection of heaven and earth, time and space, in matter, through the Christ being. We also see it in the Native American medicine wheel, the cross and the circle. It holds the four elements and the four directions. It corresponds to the square, which symbolizes physicality and matter. The word matter is correspondent to the word mother. And we know that the Native American religion is very much focused on Mother Earth. We also have a cross shape in our bodies when we stand up erect and extend our arms to the left and right, and the heart is at the intersection point. And as I alluded to earlier, we apply the vertical and horizontal in our practices in energy medicine. Through a Hara alignment meditation, we connect heaven and earth within us through our hearts. And if our client is horizontal on a table and we're standing upright, it's another way that we can be aware of the creation of this beautiful image and geometry of the cross. We're going to start focusing on the circle now as one of the forms in sacred geometry that are very important. A circle defined is a round-shaped figure that has no corners or edges. It's defined as a closed, two-dimensional curved shape. And we are going to focus on the circle. Its universal symbol is very rich in meaning. Generally, we think of circle as oneness. A circle has no beginning and no end, therefore it can represent the cycles of time and eternity, but it also represents all of these other words that you're seeing on the screen: vitality and health and the cosmos and divinity and perfection, etc. So a circle and sphere, they're the same shape, but they're different dimensions. A circle is two-dimensional, a sphere is three-dimensional. And our planets are examples of spheres, and the sun is at the center of our solar system. More images of circles and spheres. We know that people have worshipped in circular formation for eons of time, and they continue to do so. We love to gather in circles because it represents our unity and our sense of equality, and we can all see each other when we're standing and sitting in circles. That's my favorite image of people gathering in circles in the upper right, with all those beautiful children. Circles are used in sacred art, and the example I wanted to give here is a mandala. And not only do you see a circle, but you can see forms within forms. So we can see triangles, squares, and 6 and 12 pointed stars. We can see spirals in these images. And not only do we see form within forms, but we have the presence of concentricity or concentric circles. And all of this has symbolic meaning. Concentric circles represent the point and the periphery, the central point, and then everything surrounded about it. It includes subtle layers or levels, such as the human aura. We know we have levels to our aura. So when we're gazing upon sacred art, we're entraining to the energy of the sacred geometry within it. One of my very favorite cathedrals in the whole world that I've been to a few times is Chartres. It's in France near Paris, and it's famous for the rose windows. So not only do you see the circle, but you see different shapes within the circle, and you see concentric circles. This is also true of this very famous piece of artwork by Doré. You can see the circle, the concentric circles, and the point and the periphery. And I also have a fascination with crop circles. So just briefly, I'm showing you a few. Again, overall, you see a circle, but there's also forms within the circle, shapes within shapes. Now let's just take note that the seed of life is the basic form to the flower of life. The flower of life is more complex. It has more circles, and all geometric forms can actually be found within the flower of life. It's a very complex and beautiful form. You can easily see within it the hexagon and the Vesica Pisces, but there are all the other forms within it. You can see the concentric nature of the layers, the point and the periphery. There's many mystical meanings. So here's the seed of life and the flower of life. It symbolizes creation and the unity of everything. We are all created from the same blueprint. And when I found this, it just blew me away because it ties together the circle and the flower of life with life's creation and the conception of life. So here we see the images of a fertilized ovum, a fertilized egg, which then divides and multiplies into the various sacred geometric forms, evolving into the flower of life. And just a sample of Japanese calligraphy, where moving from the right to the left, they're also showing the process of creation from the circle to the square. Here are some beautiful images of the flower of life, and these are more images of the flower of life, all from very ancient pieces of art, hundreds and thousands of years old. So let's study the Vesica Pisces briefly. There's both a horizontal and a vertical orientation to the Vesica. Notice that the center of each circle lies on the perimeter of the other. What does it represent? It represents union, common ground, blending, a portal into another dimension or world. It represents union. These are all important concepts in energy therapy. Let's look at how the Vesica has been incorporated into architecture, so that people would get a sense that they were actually crossing a threshold between two worlds when entering certain sacred spaces. So the idea is that we go through this portal and you're in another world or dimension. So when I go to daily mass and I walk into my parish church, I feel like I am entering another dimension. And then when I'm walking out, I kind of have to prepare myself to go back into, my more earthly world. I just had to show you some examples of how the Vesica has been used in ancient Christian artwork. This goes all the way back to the Middle Ages. So I'm just going to show you all of this very briefly because there's so much to share with you, but it's everywhere. A lot of other religions and organizations use the Vesica as well. And here's an example of modern art that uses the Vesica Pisces. And you can also see concentric vesicas as well as the Trinity and the threefoldness in the theme of Maiden, Mother, and Crone. And another piece of modern artwork incorporating the sacred geometry of the Vesica as a portal between worlds. And again, just reminding you that in our own practitioner preparation, we're going to apply both versions of the Vesica, the vertical and the horizontal. In the vertical, which is one above the other, that's where we're attuning with the spiritual world. We're bringing heaven and earth within ourselves, creating it within the sacred space for our treatment. And then when we're ready, perhaps the next step might be creating that vesica, that union, the blending of fields with our clients. Now, at the end of a treatment, then we have to reverse the attunement process to come back into normal, healthy individual separate boundaries. So then you go back into the two circles, the I and the thou of yourself and the client. Now let's move into the intervention that I want to teach you today. And we're going to be applying the circle through the sacred geometric shape of the seed of life or the flower of life. So this is the quality of the number 1. And all of the sacred geometric shapes that I work with are also going to be associated with prime numbers. So there's the quality of 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you can apply what I'm going to teach you to yourself and to a client. So let's begin by just talking about the purpose of this first intervention. The purpose is for clearing. So we want to clear our field or our client's field of that which no longer serves. And that could be physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. So it might be energetic debris. It could be physical toxic substances. It could be bothersome thoughts or repetitive thoughts that do not serve. It could be dark emotions. It could be memories. And we also apply this method to just open up to the divine flow of heavenly, godly life force. This is an off-body method. In other words, we're not going to use any physical touch. It's what we sometimes refer to as a hands in motion gesture. Other gestures in the sacred geometry sequence are what's referred to as hand still, where we're actually lightly going to place our hands gently over a part of a body, either using light touch or off-body touch. So this method is all off-body. So as in all treatments, even for ourselves, we are going to do practitioner preparation. So we come to a quiet place of grounding and centering. We attune with the divine. We attune with our higher selves, with our inner wisdom. And we set the intention that our thinking is aligned with truth. Our feeling is aligned with beauty. Our willing is aligned with service, with love, with goodness. And I can visualize the vertical and horizontal vesica Pisces. I blend my own individual field with the spiritual world. And if I were with a client, then I add the horizontal vesica Pisces to blend our own fields for attunement. And then I can add this gesture, as above, so below. So in this gesture on earth as it is in heaven, we point up to the heavens and then gradually bring our hands down, pointing to the center of the earth. And this invokes that intention of as above, so below. And I use this gesture between every single geometric shape that I apply in the sacred geometry treatment. It's just a nice reminder of my overall intention to bring heaven to earth through me into my client, or just for Mother Earth and the healing of humanity. What you'll be doing is, I'm referring now to the self-care treatment, and then I'll refer to client application afterward. So let's just practice this for 5 minutes for ourselves. So first you'll start by visualizing this beautiful flower of life or seed of life, kind of in the size of a hula hoop above your head, horizontal above your head. You set the intention for clearing. And then what you'll be doing from a technical point of view is gradually bringing your hands down through the whole length of your body. And when your fingers get past your hips, you'll just point your etheric fingers all the way down to travel past your feet, and then released that which no longer serves. So the gesture is from above to below, bringing in this beautiful visualization and intention of the flower of life to help clear. You might have a specific intention for yourself, which you can also bring to mind, just as you would do for a client. Now we're going to apply this gesture 9 times. You might add more times if you want to, but minimally 9 times. The first and the 9th time are general cleansing and clearing, and the 2nd to the 8th times are specific to a specific chakra and its correspondent field, which has a theme. And that theme is going to be represented through a prayerful affirmation that I'm going to speak with each clearing gesture. So I will speak these out loud, and I will speak these as if I'm working with myself in a self-care treatment. And here they are on the screen for you, so you have them there to refer to later. So I'm sitting in a chair, but you can also be standing up. You can also do this laying in bed, being perfectly still, but just with your intention of seeing your guardian angel or the Christ being or a spiritual guide bring this beautiful image of the flower of life geometry through your field for clearing. So let's begin the first prayerful affirmation with the intention for clearing the composite field, and the transpersonal point is, may my body, mind, soul, and spirit be healed. Going past the feet, release that which no longer serves. And then now I return my hands above my head, but now I'm focused on the 7th field and the crown chakra. May the memory of the truth of my divinity be healed. Release. Bring the image of the seed of life, the flower of life. Now we're focused on the 6th energy center, the brow chakra, and the 6th field. May all errors in my thinking be healed. For the throat chakra and the 5th field, may all the misbegotten words that I have spoken be healed. The heart chakra and the 4th field. May my broken heart be healed. The solar plexus center and the third field. May all the ways I have misused my power be healed. The sacral chakra in the second field. May all aberrance in sexuality and poverty within me be healed. The root chakra, the first field. May all fear of survival within me be healed. And repetition for the composite fields, all the chakras. May my body, mind, soul, and spirit be healed. Thank you. This clearing method can be considered a standalone intervention, or you can combine it with other healing methods that you know, or if you study the sacred geometry sequence that I teach, this would be the first of a number of other interventions. When you finish an intervention, as I said before, we'll apply the gesture as above, so below, on earth as it is in heaven. And working with myself, I want to be sure I feel grounded and centered before I proceed to whatever is next in the course of my day, unless I'm going to sleep at that time. And of course, if you're working with a client at this time, you'd be grounding the client and sharing and empowering the client through your conversation and making sure that you reverse the attunement process. Now, in the sacred geometry sequence that I teach, this is actually what you'd be doing in the full sequence. This is kind of the cue sheet for the different symbols that you would be applying, and they all correspond to a quality of a number, and they also have an associated prayerful invocation or affirmation. And of course, you can modify those for yourself or for your client based on that person's faith or their issues, or for any other reason. The shapes that we work with in the sacred geometric sequence are the circle, the flower of life, the vesica Pisces, the lemniscate, triangle, tetrahedron, the cube, 5, 6, 7, and 8-pointed stars, the star tetrahedron, concentric circles, and the Shri Yantra. And this is just a taste of kind of what they look like. And then you get to see how these are actually applied and superimposed within the human energy field. So I'm finishing up the presentation now. I'm sorry if I went really fast. It was really, really hard for me to cut down my original PowerPoint from the 315 slides to those that I shared with you today. I felt like I had to cut a lot out, but I still feel like you have some very important basics that I hope will inspire you and interest you. And I hope I didn't confuse you. But I hope instead that you're really in this state of awe and wonder and humility and reverence and mystery, and wanting to learn more about as above, so below, the macrocosm, the microcosm, the visible world, truth, beauty, and goodness, and just how amazing we are as beautiful creations of our loving Creator. So thank you so very much for joining me. And if you're interested in learning more about me or the online course or the in-person course, you can watch an intro video on that. You can come to my website. I also work with people individually for long distance or in-person sessions. And another favorite topic of mine that I teach workshops for small or large groups is body prayer. So you can also download a DVD that I made on body prayer if you're interested, or invite me to come teach a class. And I have a little store. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I hope you feel inspired. I certainly feel blessed to have shared this with you. Peace be with you, and may all the healing that we receive ripple out into the world of humanity, to Mother Nature and Mother Earth, especially for those who suffer and who are in the dark. Blessings of light, love, and life to all. God bless you. Thank you.
Well, that was wonderful, Cynthia. That's for sure. Get you back here on video. But everyone, so hopefully you enjoyed this, and please, if you wish to make any comments or ask any questions, raise your hand and I will bring you into the group and put you on video, and you can ask some questions. You know, Cynthia, I think you wanted to do something else here right now too, right?
Yes, Robert, thank you. When I teach the course in person, people often want to go a little bit more deeply into the prayerful affirmations that I take them through the 7 major chakras. So I just thought I'd say a few more words about that. It'll take a few minutes. It's definitely worth contemplating, well, what does it really mean to heal from fear of not surviving? What does it really mean to heal from aberrance and sexuality and poverty? So instead of just accepting these prayerful supplications and affirmations as a way that you want to imprint them for your healing, everyone should really think about what do they mean to you. And so just briefly, I'll speak a highlight for each one. Over the root chakra, we would say, or a variation of, heal all fear of survival within me. So yes, many people have just a fear of death. If you think about it, our world has become very material, secular, and ungodly in many ways. So people do fear death, but the survival issue is not just about death. Many of us get very attached to our roles, our things, our homes, our possessions, our relationships, and we worry about losing them. So it's really worth contemplating, what does that mean to me? The second chakra theme has to do with, may I heal any aberrance and sexuality and poverty within me. So there's clearly a lot of aberrance in sexuality in many shapes and forms in our culture and in our society and within ourselves. So that's worth thinking about as well, including the sense of poverty within me. Just because I might have everything I need at a physical or financial level doesn't mean that I am not poor in other ways. And it could have to do with our attitude. And do I do I feel like I'm always lacking something, or do I feel that God provides for me no matter what my situation? The third chakra theme has to do with misuse of power. May I heal from all the misuse of power within me. And I think it's worth thinking about that. Sometimes I am aware of how I misuse my power. But a lot of times I'm not aware of how I misuse my power. And for me, a practice that I learned actually as a little girl was doing what's called an examination of conscience, which is a review of the day. And I would rethink all of the things or some of the things that occurred to me or that I experienced that day, and the effect that I may have had on the environment or people around me. Similarly, when I speak the supplication, may my broken heart be healed, sometimes we just feel heartbroken from a relationship or hurtful words. But I think because of just the trauma sometimes of earth life, that we kind of get acclimated to disappointment, or we expect to be disappointed, and we don't realize that in many ways we may have a broken heart that we're not even aware of. So it's just something to ponder and pray about. At the fifth chakra, the theme is misbegotten words. Certainly, we're all aware of words we've spoken that have been hurtful, and sometimes we're not even aware of the effect that our words have had on others. For the sixth chakra and the sixth field, the theme has to do with errors in thinking. I think there's a tendency of people in general to just think that our thoughts are correct or accurate or right. And we get very attached to what we think. And I remember years ago reading a little poster that said, don't believe everything you think. And it made me pause and really examine what I think, and then do I believe it's true, and why do I believe it's true? So again, um, we all have errors in our thinking, so that's worthy of a daily contemplation. For the seventh chakra and the seventh field, it's more of an umbrella kind of prayerful affirmation. May the memory of the truth of my divinity be healed. And I think if we truly did come back into that cosmic memory of our divine origin, and that we were created out of love and for love and in love and for the purpose of love, that it would kind of take care of all the rest of the issues of the other six chakras. And I think, there's a large portion of humanity that probably either doesn't think about this thought of being divine, divine human beings, or they need to be reminded. I certainly need to be reminded. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and go over that.
I'm glad you did, because that really helped clarify. But the last comment about being divine, being, is we do forget it, right? And um, and a lot of people don't realize that either. And I think it needs to be that constant reminder for all of us,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that would go a huge, huge,
yeah,
way with where we're at right now.
Well, when I look at your artwork behind you, I know that you remind yourself whenever you're in that space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question. But when you use your prayerful affirmations, or when do you decide to use those with the client or not in a session?
Well, sometimes I speak them aloud and sometimes I work in silence, and it really will depend on my relationship with the client, if we've worked together before, and what their preference is. So there might be times where initially we'll work in silence, but then she or he might decide to hear the affirmations that I speak when I go through the different various shapes. And it seems to be very helpful for some people. It does require a certain level of awakeness and awareness. And of course, sometimes people are going to fall asleep anyway, and they're kind of in that in between space of awareness and in the spiritual world or somewhere else. But it's just a choice that you can give a client or discern um, if one or more of them might enhance the the sacred space that you're co-creating with God and with the client.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned the shapes and your sacred geometries that you use here. How do you apply some of those in your work?
You mean my work with clients or with myself?
With clients.
Well, there was a little poster that you saw earlier in the slideshow, and the quality of one clearly is attributed to the circle. And I use a lemniscate which is an infinity sign or figure 8 for the quality of 2, a triangle for the quality of 3, a square or cube for the quality of 4, the 5-pointed star or pentagram for um, the quality of 5. Did I just say that the right way? 5. And then the hexagon 6-pointed star for 6, along with the 3-dimensional star tetrahedron or Merkaba. So sometimes the shapes become 3-dimensional, and sometimes they might be 2-dimensional, and that can definitely vary session to session, client to client, and just based on the energy that we're in. And then also the 7-pointed star or septagram, the 8-pointed star, and then for the quality of 9, I apply actually a line from the point below within the earth to the point above in the heavens with the 7 chakras in between. And then we also apply concentric circles from the innermost core of the human being out through the 7 levels of the field and beyond into the universe and the heart. So it's really fun. It helps me stay focused. I feel that the more I do this work, the more I learn. As I mentioned in the beginning of the recording, the more I learn, it feels like the less I know, because this topic is so vast. So even when a piece of the puzzle comes together, it's so satisfying in the moment to connect the lines or the dots, but then this whole other element comes in, and the question is, well, what's that, or how does that fit in? And part of what we have to be comfortable with in spiritual healing and energy therapy is just embracing the mystery.
Absolutely, I totally know what you're referring to. Now, I'm curious. Now, when you're in session, I would imagine, I'm assuming here, that what geometric form comes in to use is what you're using at different times. I mean, or do you try to use them all in a session? And then how long does a session take for that?
Oh, that's a good question. If I'm going to be seeing a client for an hour, I generally go sequentially through the numbers and the qualities and the shapes. There's a very nice flow to the forms, but sometimes we're in an emergency situation, or we just have 5 or 10 minutes to work with someone. Just based on the circumstances, we might just have to intuit very quickly what's the appropriate thing to do. My go-to tends to be the lemniscate, which is applied with the heart as the intersection point, and then a drawing of this beautiful infinity sign, which tends to integrate the thinking, feeling, and willing with truth, beauty, and goodness, and with the Christ consciousness. So I feel that what it does is expand the Christ consciousness within, to take precedence over anything that is less than Christ consciousness. That's my go-to, but of course it can depend, and we just strive to follow the energy and be in sacred space, trusting that we will receive divine guidance on what's appropriate. And the length of a session, again, it can vary anywhere from a few minutes to an hour or longer.
Yeah, exactly. When you were doing the infinity sign over the heart there, I was feeling that. So, wow. So hopefully someone else did too. So I'm not alone here. But, if some of them are interested here, with this, what are some ways to, if you want to say, to imprint some sacred geometry in one's field?
One thing that was really helpful for me was drawing the different shapes. So being playful and childlike, pulling out sheets of blank paper and finding crayons or colored pencils and drawing the various shapes and being whimsical or prayerful or meditative and seeing how they speak to you. Um, Maybe starting that session out with a prayerful supplication for guidance and for inner knowing. Also, being a movement oriented person, sometimes I will move in some of the shapes. Some shapes, of course, are more amenable to movement, but it helps to embody and imprint the shapes if you can either draw them or move with them, or dance to them, putting on some favorite music that inspires you at the time, and moving your body or drawing with the shapes.
Yeah, I love that aspect of the movement, right? Because you really are now getting the whole sensing of, the shape and the energy with it. I love that a lot. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One of the other things, that I loved, that you said, when we were looking at, sight and seeing sacred geometry, and you mentioned holy awe. I mean, I love that. And one of the things that, I try to, share with people is like behold and admire. I mean, when you behold and admiring things there with you, it really helps build that whole, heart resonance of that, right? So that holy awe, that you're really just doing that. So I really love that you brought that up.
Yeah, I think anytime we're in a state of reverence and holy and awe and wonder, and it makes us feel humble. It helps us remember our place in the world, which is both divine in a grand way and also very humble in a very sweet way. And this raises our vibrational frequency. So if you can place yourself in gratitude, reverence, and holy awe when you're beginning a treatment, that's a very easy way to do practitioner preparation and be in the best place you can be before you place your hands in someone's field and attempt to be a helper for their own healing process.
Absolutely. So I hope that, after today, that everyone here joining us and everyone that listens to it, after this will go ahead and be in holy awe and walk amongst the earth as a sacred divine being and really seeing the wonder of this world. And I know it can be hard, but it'd be great. So we do have a question in the chat from Rebecca. Says, "Hi Cynthia, I love the art. Did you paint these, and are they for sale?"
Oh, sweet. I do have a daughter who has illustrated my curriculum notebook, and I was able to easily attribute credit to her because I knew which ones she did. And I tried to credit as many of the other pieces in the slideshow as I could. But sometimes when you go to the internet and you search for different images, it does not always credit the artist. So I offered an apology and a decision to acknowledge anyone. If I find out who they are, I can always add that. Yes, my daughter's artwork, some of it is sold on my website in my little store.
Wonderful, wonderful. So Cynthia, this wraps up this evening. Is there anything else finally you'd like to say to everyone?
I'm so glad that you took time out of your life to join us. Thank you so much. And I hope you feel inspired to want to learn more. And as Robert said, I hope you live a life in holy awe. That's the best place you could be.
I love it. And I'm so grateful for this night and this time that we all got to spend together. So God bless everyone. And Cynthia, thank you so much. Everyone, have a blessed rest of the evening, and we'll connect with you again. Bye-bye now.
You. Thanks, Robert.